Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. It's a wonderful Saturday afternoon, and I'm still recharging from a busy week. But in a few moments, you're going to hear my thoughts and feelings on the season 14 Where Are They Now episode of Married at First Sight. Now of course I'm posting this a few days after the episode aired, but to be perfectly honest, this episode was a complete waste of time, energy, and the events could have been summarized within a 30-minute period instead of the 2-hour time slot. So I'm simply going to just give my thoughts on the significant things that happened this episode, and at the end of the video, I'll be making an announcement on my reviews for the show going forward. First, let's talk about Steve and Noi. I'm glad that they are still together, and Noi is starting to believe in Steve. I think it's safe to say that Steve went from being the butt of most people's jokes to being one of the best husbands in the show's history. What I found interesting in this episode was that Steve convinced Noi to babysit his family member's 3 kids, and from that experience alone, Noi finally showed some flexibility in wanting 3 kids. I have to commend Steve for his patience and willingness to meet Noi where she is, because that's the only way I can see their marriage lasting for the long term. Next up is Olajuwon and Katina, and not much has really changed with them in this episode. Olajuwon is definitely more dialed down than he was during the filming of the season, and Katina looks like she actually wants to be with Olajuwon, which is a plus. What I found interesting with them in this episode was that they were finally giving each other permission to hang out with their own friends and family members more often. In my opinion, that's how every marriage and relationship should be. There has to be some sort of balance, but overall I'm glad that they're doing great. Later on in the episode, the entire cast meets up at a party, and Michael uses this time to pull Jasmine to the side so they can have some sort of closure. But this conversation was simply a waste of time. It quickly turns into another session of Jasmine failing to accept accountability for why their marriage failed, as well as Mike not being able to get a word in. Getting a divorce as early as they did was the best thing that these two could have hoped for. Michael can easily find a woman that'll like him for him, and I wish nothing but the best for Jasmine. Lindsay and Mark had their updates, and we also meet them for the first time since the reunion to sign their divorce papers. One of the main observations that I had about them was that they both look a lot happier apart than they ever looked when they were together. I think Mark is still traumatized by the experience, but hopefully he can overcome the trauma by the time he's ready to fully jump back into the dating scene. Because nobody deserves to pay for the mistakes that somebody else made during their past relationships. I was also happy to see how much Lindsay has changed since the reunion. I think that Lindsay has been getting much deserved backlash for her antics during the season, but I believe that her apologies to Steve and Mark were genuine. But I also noticed that she never bothered to apologize to Alyssa. And can you blame her? Speaking of Alyssa, some genius thought it would be a great idea to set Alyssa up with Ryan from the Houston season. And yes, I believe that they were set up by the show, because I refuse to believe that somebody like Ryan would willingly want to be set up with Alyssa, who in my opinion is a huge downgrade from Brett in more ways than one. But on the flip side, Ryan is the outdoorsy cowboy that Alyssa always wanted. I will say that watching them interact during their date was a little bit awkward, because Alyssa was giving Ryan multiple choosing signals, but Ryan simply wasn't taking the bait. It looked like Ryan was just there to be there, and he really wasn't interested. But later on in the episode, Alyssa confronts Ryan for having a cordial relationship with Lindsay, who Alyssa claims is her sworn enemy, and because of that, Alyssa took back her invitation for Ryan to join the rest of the cast at the party. I'm sure Ryan could care less about hanging out with a bunch of people he never met before, and he's probably also relieved that he doesn't have to deal with a nutcase like Alyssa ever again. Speaking of arranged dates, we also get to see Chris and Olivia from the New Orleans season go out on a date. I truly believe that Chris and Olivia had more of a mutual interest in one another than Alyssa and Ryan did, but let's be honest here. And this is no disrespect to Olivia, and I'm sure she's a nice lady, but I don't see her being the woman that Chris really wants or needs. During her season of Married at First Sight, Alyssa was essentially looking for a companion who will go on trips with her, and who may occasionally have sex with her. She took pride in how much money she made, and she really didn't want to compromise on her lifestyle or anything outside of her comfort zone. I don't know how Olivia feels about having kids, but I think Chris is looking for a significant other, and not a companion who just wants to go on expensive trips. So if Olivia can compromise with Chris and loosen up a little bit, then I can see things possibly working out between the two of them. If not, then they might as well just end things right now and move on. But lastly, it was nice to see Alyssa apologize to Chris. And while it seemed that production may have put her up to it, I think Alyssa also felt some type of way about seeing Olivia with Chris and how she wasn't able to bring Ryan with her to show him off to everybody. But you reap what you sow. But overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give this episode a strong 2. It was pointless, a huge waste of time, but it wasn't a complete wash as we get to see a humble version of Lindsay and Alyssa. But this concludes my Married at First Sight Season 14 journey with all of you. I want to thank everyone who took the time to check out my reviews, like my videos, and subscribe to my channel during this time. But going forward, I'll be approaching things a little differently with Married at First Sight. As many of you already know, we get a 1-month break before the new season of Married at First Sight airs. But when that season airs, I'll be devoting much of my energy towards reviewing the show. And this is significant because over the course of me reviewing Season 14 of Married at First Sight, I was also reviewing 9 other shows and 2 movies, and I unfortunately suffered some burnout because of it. So I'll still be reviewing other shows on this channel, but Married at First Sight will be the priority, and I'll also be working to make my reviews more unique, original, and interactive. But again, I want to thank everyone for tuning into the channel. If you have any questions or comments about the episode or my review, feel free to leave them in the comment section and I'll reply to everybody. So until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.